Mr. Jack Dorsey, former co-founder of Twitter, decided the other day he has had enough. He wants to now create his version of a true decentralized ecosystem that is way more than what we currently know as Web3, and he wanted to call it Web5. And I must be honest, a lot of it is just awesome marketing. But in my opinion, for my vision of simplifying Web3, he just made my life very hard, because the reason why he came up with Web5 is that it's Web3 plus Web2 is equal to Web5. So if anyone's asking where's Web4, well, it's all marketing. But let's understand what is going on here with Web5. First and foremost, it's Web3, but really decentralized. Now, what you need to understand is Mr. Jack Dorsey is an avid Bitcoin fan and really doesn't like much of what's going on with the other blockchains, from Ethereum to other blockchains, including various other tokens. Okay, he is Bitcoin, and he believes that Bitcoin is the true decentralized platform that is not governed by a bunch of investors and VCs that have put their money together. And if you sort of dive deep into the paperwork, you will realize that even though they're working on decentralized technologies, that there are a lot of VCs and there are a lot of investors and big names that ultimately even own these decentralized platforms. You see, this is where Jack's coming from, Jack Dorsey. So from his point of view, Bitcoin is not one of those blockchains that is affected. So his vision is now to create the true decentralized ecosystem. That is what Web3 was maybe meant to be. He's calling it Web5, but again, it's a lot of marketing. It's almost as if he wants to fix Web3, because from his point of view, Web3, even though decentralized on blockchains and it's tokenomics and people can use things like MetaMask in order to authenticate yourself against certain platforms, the data exists on the blockchains and therefore theoretically could still be owned. It depends on how you see it, but theoretically could still be owned. It depends on how many of the masses own the majority of that particular blockchain. I can't get into the details over here, but what matters is that, think of it this way, there are things that are currently happening with many of these blockchains, and we can see some of the craziness that has happened where people are able to affect the outcomes of some of these blockchains, of some of these tokens and crypto coins. This is where Jack is coming from. He's saying that he has a plan to create a network that is truly decentralized, not only from an identity perspective of who you are as a person, but that he really wants to give you back your own data, and you get to decide not only who's allowed to access your email, but who's physically allowed to access the data you wish to publish out there on the network. And this is sort of where he's going. And what he wants to do is he wants to use the Bitcoin blockchain as the layer one solution, but he wants to use the Lightning Network. The Bitcoin Lightning Network exists on top of Bitcoin. If you've got Bitcoin over here as a layer one blockchain, the Lightning Network was created on top. And the purpose of the Lightning Network was to take over a lot of the transactions that can occur and not have it physically occur on the layer one Bitcoin blockchain, because that's where a lot of the heavy gas fees are. Gas fees are the transaction payments you need to make. And that's usually, if you want to send $10, it's going to cost you $20 gas fees in order to send them $10. And it all depends on the mining that's occurring on that particular blockchain. But the Lightning Network exists on top. And what it does is it uses a number of algorithms and transactions that group together something that could occur on the layer one blockchain, but ultimately it brings down the cost to like a fraction of the price that you would pay on the Bitcoin blockchain. And it also makes the time it takes to transact on the Bitcoin blockchain very, very, very fast. Okay, extremely, extremely fast. So there's a reason for the Lightning Network that exists over there. And it is this technology that Jack is using to say that we can now build a true decentralized network from a data and identity perspective, using this technology that's not going to cost us much of anything in order to perform these transactions, but it's going to still give us that true decentralization. Now, how is he going to achieve this? I've got a couple of abbreviations over here. So DIDs, VCs, DWNs, and DWAs. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly go through these. These are technologies that he plans on using to create this truly decentralized platform. And as I explain these, you will soon realize, if you do understand Web3, you will soon realize what he wants is still Web3, but just a much better version of it. Fine. Never mind the fact that Web3 is still trying to identify itself, but let's keep it there. All right, so DIDs, it's Decentralized Identifiers. So the idea over here is that you have a unique a globally unique identity that you are in complete ownership of, that gets created, but it exists obviously on this underlying technology, which is Bitcoin and the Lightning Network. But you have this decentralized identity, and it's like your passport or your ID. And a lot of people think, but isn't that what MetaMask is? Isn't that what maybe one or two other things are? Well, we're still trying to understand exactly what they are trying to achieve with Web5. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be part of the Web5 team or part of Jack's team. I'm here to take the information that was given to me, and I'm here to simplify it. But ultimately, just like you have a unique cell phone number for your mobile device, or you have a unique email address, you have a unique decentralized identity, something that can be used everywhere on a decentralized network, no matter what. All right, so you've got that. That's your DID. Then you've got VCs, verified credentials. Now, here's a good example. Let's say that you have a DID. So I am John Jardin, and this is my DID that proves I'm John Jardin. What if I want to go and visit the US? Because I'm in South Africa now. What if I want to go and visit US? And now the US are saying, I can see by your DID that you are John Jardin, but how do I know that you are actually from South Africa? So now there could be another DID that's focused on where your nationality is or where you currently originate from. And these could be DIDs that exist on a different level. So what would happen over here is I would need to work with those DIDs. My DID needs to interact with those DIDs to create something called a VC. A VC is a verified credential. It is a document that says, I, as a verified person who manages, who lives where in this world, I see John Jardin as a verified person, and I can verify that he lives in South Africa. And that is exactly what a VC is. It is a proof that is created from multiple DIDs to say that this is a verified person, a verified credential that allows maybe certain interactions to occur. It now allows me to go and travel the US, because that's all the US wanted to know was, does John in fact come from South Africa? All right, so that's a VC. So now, what are DWNs and DWAs? DWNs are decentralized web nodes. Now, if you take a look at blockchain technology, the decentralization of blockchain technology is a bunch of nodes. A node represents a computer or a server or a laptop or even a smartphone. And that's why they call it a node, because it's not only ever a computer, it's not only ever a smartphone, it is a device that can run a blockchain technology and can store data. It has a hard drive. That is what we call a node. So a decentralized node network is similar to, is pretty much what we see with blockchain technology. It is a bunch of nodes that are working together to synchronize the data using the blockchain technology. And that data does not belong to any one of those computers. It is open data. There's no ownership. The ownership actually belongs to those who created the data. Okay, so that is what we know as decentralized blockchains right now. What DWNs are they are decentralized web nodes. And the intent over here is that I, as John Jardin, can create computers or nodes that represent my data, not everyone else's data. It represents my data. And using my DID, I have access to that data. It belongs to me. So do you see where this is going? It's not physically stored on a blockchain, but rather on a mini blockchain, or what we call a sub-network that exists only for me. And the reason why I would have multiples is for, obviously for disaster, for redundancy, or for to make sure that if it only ever exists on my computer and it gets stolen, it can exist elsewhere, maybe on my smartphone, maybe somewhere else. This is the reason why I would have multiple nodes. It represents a mini blockchain that is my data. So using my DID against my nodes, I am in complete control of not only my identity, but my data. It does not even belong to a blockchain. It belongs to me. And that is the idea over here. So what does this mean though? If I have a tutorial on how to do something, that tutorial will exist in my node network. And it is only accessible and readable because it's encrypted. It's only readable using my identifier. So if someone wants to read my tutorial via a web interface, they would request access to my tutorial, and using my identifier, I can grant access and I can take that and actually send it to this person's node. So they would have their own node network of their data, and we could transfer data using identifiers. So what it's doing is it's taking the blockchain and it's personalizing the blockchain so that there is true ownership. Now, how is everyone able to do this? Via what interface are people allowed to do this? And that is the last abbreviation of AI, which is DWAs. DWA stands for Decentralized Web Applications. These are applications that will use the protocols and the libraries and the APIs that will exist in order to interface with these nodes, with these VCs, with these identifiers, in order to create these solutions that people will be able to interface with in order to share data, knowing that at any point in time, I as the owner provide privileges to my data. You don't just get to see it. I provide privileges to this application in order to view my data. I am in true ownership. It's still Web3. And one could argue that a lot of this technology already exists and a lot of these practices are already in place, but they're clearly not adopted, and there is still a massive problem. And this is a problem that he is trying to solve.